Alright, what do you think the most pivotal moment in human history is? Some people might say that it was cavemen, utilizing their underdeveloped monkey brains to help them create fire. Some people might say it was the ancient civilization of Mesopotamia creating the wheel. Or some people might say that it was just the wicked engineering and calculations that went into creating space travel. Or SpaceX landing their rocket booster for the first time. While all these moments were dope and truly set milestones for humanity and civilization, there was one moment that changed the course of human evolution forever. The 900. Let's go, dude. Let's go. Every time I watch this video, I'm just overcome with like a weird sense of excitement and awe. Watching this 31-year-old man go up on a ramp and spin around in 2.5 circles and land on it, it gets me fired up. For real, dude. This guy can ride a plank of wood with wheels, rip up into the sky, spin around 2.5 times and land on his feet. Then like, I could definitely do my laundry. It won't be that bad. I can just do a load in the middle of the day. I'm the type of person where I just get obsessed with things when I have absolutely no idea how they're done. For some reason, I love watching 2 different types of things that I have absolutely no idea how they're completed. Magic tricks and skateboarding tricks. While magic tricks, they are a fun little blast of amusement and wonder, they just have like way less of an impression on me than skateboarding. That's because I just feel like magic tricks, like they're pretty easy to figure out how they're done, right? So like if you just Google, how did that magician make that pen appear in between my stinky cheeks, you'll come up with some results pretty quickly. Weirdly enough, when we like learn how a magic trick is done, we dismiss it, even though we know that the illusion was pretty hard to pull off. But skateboarding tricks?
That's a whole other ballgame.
Well, it's pretty easy to find out how skateboarding tricks are done. Actually executing them feels like a whole different mountain that needs to be climbed. The part that's hard about it is the fact that someone spent hundreds of hours standing on a piece of wood with wheels and making it look cooler than Funky Kong flying over a Van Halen concert. With skateboarding, there's no illusion here. Tony Hawk really did just grab his board, spin around in 2.5 rotations, and land on his feet. And he tried 11 times that day before he finally landed it. Not even including the amount of times that he tried that trick before he even got to the X Games. That's the part that just blows my mind every single time. I don't know, I just love watching people do stuff that I can't do. Maybe I feel like that's the difference between magic tricks and skateboarding for me. I could probably figure out a magic trick, but I am way too fat and stupid to figure out an ollie, let alone a McTwist. Anyway, the day that Tony Hawk ripped the first 900, he planted a flag in culture for dudes who love Arizona tea and smoking weed behind their parents' house. Out of that same Arizona can later in the day. He also infected an entire generation of skaters and non-skaters into seeing how awesome this sport can be through a video game. That's probably how my older brother ended up with a copy of Tony Hawk Pro Skater for the Nintendo 64. I've told this lore before, but my dad, he used to have a Nintendo 64 at our house, so when my older brother came over for custody visits, he would have, I guess, something to do. I must have crawled up to that console in my diapies and looked at that blue cartridge compared to the rest of them that were all gray. Crammed that bad boy in there and got ready to rock. My dad, my brother, and I, we would all sit around that TV and we would try to do the different skate tricks. And you know, it was as good as about a 4 or 5-year-old could get. And honestly, I've just loved the Tony Hawk games ever since. I decided to pick this game back up recently, and you know what? It did not disappoint. I think it's time that we take a deep look into Tony Hawk Pro Skater is a skateboarding game that was developed by Neversoft and published by Activision. Looking to appeal to a younger market, Activision, they saw success in Sega's arcade title called Top Skater, and they figured that they could probably sauce out something with similar swag. In the development process, Neversoft employees would go over to their local bowling alley because it had an arcade, and they would play Top Skater. They did this to study its mechanics and just learn overall about creating a skating game. While Top Skater, it utilized a downhill approach for skating. Activision and Neversoft, they decided to incorporate more locations that they thought that people would actually be skating at, like schools or urban landscapes, and obviously actual skate parks. After utilizing the same engine as their most recent game, Apocalypse, Neversoft used the main character from Apocalypse to be used as the demo skater for this very early build of the game, who just happened to be Bruce Willis. Once finalizing a prototype, Neversoft realized that they didn't want to continue building a game unless they got some professional opinion. And this is where Tony Hawk comes in. They got Tony a copy of the prototype. He said it was looking extra beast, and they worked up a royalty deal where his name, image, and likeness could be used in exchange for a percentage of every copy of the game sold. Tony continued to receive builds of the game, and he would play them on his modded PlayStation that allowed the console to be able to play games that were burned on a CDR format. After giving feedback to the developers on what was and wasn't possible in the realm of skating, the game was finalized and it was released in 1999 for the PlayStation. With its critical acclaim, copies went flying off the shelves like it was toilet paper in 2020. And because of this success, Activision decided to port the game over to different consoles, such as the Game Boy, the Nintendo 64, the Sega Dreamcast, and the N-Gage. Tony Hawk offers you 4 different playstyles while playing this game: career mode, single session, free skate, and multiplayer. The main objective of this game is to beat all the tournaments, collect all of the VHS tapes, and raise your stats to the maximum. If there was any semblance of a story in this game, it would be located in the career mode section. This is a commonly used trope in the genre of sports games. You play as one of the provided characters or teams, work your way through different courses or objectives or matchups and games, and then you end up competing in some sort of tournament. That's really it. There's no character development, no character arcs, there's not really any twist endings. The story is literally just be dope and hit dope combos. And you know what?
That's what's up.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't really think that stories belong in sports games. And that's coming from me, a guy who has probably literally played Madden and 2K for probably a collective of 30 minutes in my entire life. If you can't tell from how many LBs I'm packing, or just the way that I present myself, I am not into sports at all. Not even in the slightest. Closest I get to being a fan of any team is probably the Cubs. And that's just really because my mom and dad are Cubs fans. And I grew up an hour away from Chicago. So if and when I fire up a sports game, I want it to be as dead simple as Tony Hawk is. I have absolutely zero connection to any athlete or team. So why would I want to spend any time getting invested into what's going on in their personal lives? I used to watch a buddy of mine play NBA 2K back in the day when I was a freshman living in the dorms. Tell me why missions in NBA 2K are like, oh, you get a phone call and you pick it up and you take it and you say, oh man, that was my divorce lawyer. I got to go to court and settle on alimony payments. And then your tall basketball player walks in and it says press X to litigate. And then it fades out into white. And then you're standing in a Starbucks and it says press Y to order a large venti iced coffee with cream and sugar. Is this The Sims? Or are we gonna play some basketball? I'm exaggerating, of course. But this is where Tony Hawk career mode shines. It's no nonsense. No stupid side missions that are, yes, probably relevant to a person who would play that sport, but they have absolutely nothing to do with said sport. Okay, but the question is, what if Tony Hawk did have stupid side missions like NBA 2K? Here's what I think they'd look like. Smoke weed behind an Arby's. Draw the super S on your algebra test. Get caught stuffing a Playboy under your mattress. Leave your DC shoes in your gym locker on accident. Get arrested for shoplifting candy from a local gas station. Look, maybe these aren't all things that a pro skater would do, but they're definitely things that kids that I knew who skated, they would definitely do those things. Anyway, let's get back to the game. This game is straight to the point and uses its career mode as more of a way to progress your character than force them into situations that don't have absolutely
Anything to do with skating.
skate, hit tricks, win tournaments, be dope. This is the simplicity that a sports game needs. And this is the legacy of Tony Hawk Pro Skater's story. Dude, this game it looks like garbage. I'm sorry, but it looks like a bag of turds that got lit on fire and thrown on Old Man John's doorstep. To absolutely no fault of the developers, this game looks like a fever dream that you would have after eating 42 buffalo wings at an Applebee's and threatening to stab the waiter. When it comes to graphical fidelity, there was that weird period in between 4th generation consoles like the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis and 6th generation consoles like the PlayStation 2 or the GameCube. The Super Nintendo, it just bolstered such high fidelity pixel art that really just cemented itself as an iconic art style in all of video game history. PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, they crossed over that line of having somewhat of a semblance of reality when it came to its graphics. The 5th generation, on the other hand, dog, this just looks like cheeks. Look, I'll cut this generation some slack. This was the world's first dive into 3D graphics at home. Yeah, I know it's not going to be perfect. And I bet at the time, people were looking at stuff like this and thinking it was the most
High definition, crazy realistic graphics they'd ever seen in their entire lives.
But as we progress in time, you can look back at the strides that we've made, and we're allowed to point and laugh. It's okay to look at the failures if you see where they led you. The reason why this game objectively looks like a steaming pile of diarrhea compared to modern games all comes down to one technological innovation that helped pioneer 3D graphics as we know it: polygons. Now look, you're probably thinking to yourself, Corn, what does sophomore year geometry have to do with making Tony Hawk Pro Skater look like a diaper loaded with baby food?
Everything!
When diving into the world of creating 3D models, polygons were instituted to help create and render these models. Disclaimer, I am not a computer scientist or an animator. These polygons, they're triangles, and they're all wrapped around the wireframe of a character or a model to give it that semblance of a 3D shape that's later animated inside of the game. For reference, Lara Croft from Tomb Raider on the PS1, well, her character used 230 polygons total to create her entire model. In a modern game like God of War for PS4, well, just his facial features alone utilized over
42,000 polygons.
And look, this concept of low poly count characters, it obviously worked its way over to Tony Hawk as well. And this is the staple of the 5th generation of consoles, trying to push the boundaries of creating 3D characters for a home experience, but creating a
Turd twister in the process.
And look, all right, okay, I'll stop dogging on the 5th generation and its absolutely doo-doo graphics. But I think there's one distinction here that makes the 5th generation graphics not look like feces: the variation between cartoon and realism. Here's some examples of games that are from the 5th generation of consoles that I think hold the test of time. Super Mario 64, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Pokemon Stadium, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro. Do you want to know why all these games in the grand scheme of things don't look that bad? It's because the characters aren't real. In the late 90s, you really couldn't even set a standard for how these fictional characters looked. They just looked however the technology allowed them to look. That's why, looking back, yes, these graphics are a little primitive compared to our modern standards, but they have a more soothing appeal on the eye. When we start crossing over into animating humans or places that actually exist in reality, this is where the immersion can turn into a freak show. The problem is we do have a reference point for how people in places should look. That's why looking at the character models and the world design in Tony Hawk Pro Skater, that's just why it looks like
An ignited fart.
But does this absolutely horrific representation of reality stop me from playing these games? No, it doesn't. When I play this game, I'm not really focused in on the surrounding details that are going on in the world because I'm so dialed in on
Cheesing some sweet combos.
when I'm locked into the moment. You could have a hot dog riding around on a snowboard on a pile of losing lottery tickets, and I just would not care. I'm not playing these games for the graphical fidelity. I'm playing them for the dope levels, music, and obviously just the overall gameplay. Warehouse is the first map that you encounter while playing this game. Warehouse is exactly what you would expect to be based off the name that it lends itself. It's a warehouse. There's a few downhill ramps at the beginning that lead you into the warehouse. an absolutely sick half pipe in the middle, and other raised areas with walls that have ramps and rails. Warehouse, it's arguably the most iconic level to come out of this game, as obviously it continued to find its way into other games in the franchise, with Warehouse being the first experience that any player gets in the world of Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Players, they have a tendency to remember this level as the level. After playing this game, I've kind of come to the conclusion that there are no other legitimate uses for a warehouse besides being a skate park. E-commerce versus skating in a dopeness competition? Dog, you already know. Next time an Amazon driver comes to your door, do your best to convince them that the warehouse that they just came from would be a lot more ill if it was a skate park. Let's get Bezos on a board, yo! School is the second map that you encounter on your journey to becoming a master skater. School, this just feels like the perfect environment for you to be skating in, as the only place that I ever met super hardcore skaters was at school. They got different ramps to use, they got handrails for you to grind down, they got ramps inside of the gymnasium, an emptied out pool to just rip as a half pipe, and even a secret little skate park on top of the school to spice it up. This is where the element of street skating, it really starts to feel relevant within the game. You utilize the different elements of school items to grind off of, or do a flip trick off of, or any other thing that's School, it's larger than Warehouse and allows you to explore a larger surface area while finding places for you to cheese sweet combos off of. School is actually super dope because it sets the environment for that anti-establishment youth movement that skating was really notorious for. Why learn about fractions when I could just go outside and kick a McTwist? Mall is the third level that you get to play in this game. For my younger generation out there, well, a shopping mall is like Amazon, but it's in real life. And you actually gotta talk to somebody when you're buying stuff. I know that sounds impossible for all my neurodivergent people out there, but it's possible. I promise. Dude, when I was in college, I worked at a local mall during COVID. If you thought malls were already in the decline, imagine working at one in the middle of a pandemic in Muncie, Indiana, where the poverty rate is over 30%. That job was absolutely swag though, because on the topic of skating, I would get like a 45% discount on anything that was in the store, which I would always use for like van stuff. I hustled shoes like I was dealing mixtapes on the streets of Chicago, and I made
Minimum wage while doing it.
You want to get a Congressional Medal of Honor in my book? Work in retail and come out of it with a positive outlook on the human race.
Because it's almost impossible.
Anyway, the mall is abandoned, but it's absolutely crying out for some middle-aged homies to come through and shred some decks over its bare bones. The mall rules because it gives you a variety of places to hit sweet jumps, grinds, and at the end of it are even some vert ramps. Skate Park, it's the fourth level that you go crazy in. There are 3 different levels within this game where you actually engage in a skating competition based on heat rounds, compared to just trying to collect points or tapes. In Skate Park, this is your first introduction to it. It's similar to Warehouse, it's inside of a building that has a bunch of scaffolding and rails and ramps, helping you absolutely just cook up the beefiest combos. According to Tony Hawk lore, this is actually based on a real place called the House of Vans, which is pretty beast. Personally, there's nothing really exciting or like really standoutish about this level to me, except for the fact that it kind of really puts you into your first skate park experience, compared to all the other levels that just felt like it was like a normal place where skaters would go and fart around. Downtown is the 5th level that you play in Tony Hawk Pro Skater. With a similar feel to School, it encourages the player to do a lot more street skating moves. One of the biggest features here that gets introduced is the introduction of taxi cars that circle around the map and always try to run you over, perfectly showcasing old people's hate for skaters at the time. They have absolutely no problem committing vehicular manslaughter against you. There's a lot of different areas that are around the map that have a lot of different ramps that allow you to do sick grab tricks on, and a whole new set of objectives for you to allow you to collect tapes. One of the tapes that is present in this level that sits pretty adjacent next to the murderous taxi drivers is you going around and taking out the no skating signs as a big middle finger to any sort of authority that tells me that
I can't be beast on public property.
One of the dopest parts about this map is taking the secret tunnelway that takes you to the top of a building, and there's a bunch of vert ramps up there, and that's always where I would hang out if I was trying to collect a high score. Downtown, it was dope. It wasn't crazy memorable in my opinion, but yeah, it was still dope. Downhill Jam is the 6th level that you unlock on your journey to greatness. This map is kind of similar to a mall because it's the 2nd level in the game that has a very linear path. You start at the top of the hill and get your way to the bottom. Set in the Mojave Desert, this map, it's got more of like a tan or sand color vibe to it, and that reflects its geographical location. As you cruise down the hill, ramps and rails, they're placed along the route that allow you to string together some absolutely swag moves. From different water lines that you can grind on, to random half pipes that are just lodged in the middle of the hill. Downhill Jam, it allows you to pick up some major speed and a lot of good opportunities for point collection. Once you reach the end of Downhill Jam, you hit that finish line and your run is over. You have to just start over. The hidden areas and the different ways to maneuver around secret parts of the map also add a lot of excitement to this run as well. See, Downhill Jam, it's dope because when I personally think of skating, I used to longboard when I was in high school. So like my favorite time was when you would find just a big hill and you go down and try to cook it as hard as absolutely possible without falling off and having all of your skin ripped off of your body. Well, Downhill Jam, it absolutely replicates that feeling 1 for 1. Burnside, it's the 7th level that you play. Burnside, it's the 2nd competition that's within career mode. Similar to Chicago, obviously the objective here is to go around the skate park and chain up as many dope-ass combos as possible so you can win the gold medal. There's a few little awesome Easter eggs that are kind of featured throughout the park here. Like in one of the drop-in bowls, it's the Neversoft eyeball logo. This entire map, it's actually based on a real skate park that exists that's underneath the Burnside Bridge in Portland, Oregon. This was a really cool addition of bringing in a legitimate area that people would skate in into the game to give a nod to all the skaters out there in Portland that, you know, really like to sidewalk surf. As you'd expect, like I said, the objective of this part is to just get as high a score as possible, and there is a little bit of a increase in difficulty based off the other skaters and their scores because they've increased from the last time too. So basically what you want to do right here is kind of utilize that good rhythm that you've picked up from playing all the other maps and just really cheese it. The atmosphere of Burnside is pretty beast because it does kind of give that feeling of reality, like you are just some homeless dude hitting some trill tricks under a bridge. They really captured the energy and the vibe of kids who just love street skating in this level. San Francisco Streets is the 8th map in Tony Hawk Pro Skater. No, not those streets. Yeah, those. The streets that existed before the national political stage and corporate greed pushed people into a life of crime and homelessness and drug abuse. This map is supposed to be a combination of already super notable places that already exist inside of San Francisco, like Lombard Street, the Hubba Hideout, Chinatown, the Clock Tower, Embarcadero Pier, and the Valiant Court Fountain. I think that's how you pronounce it. This map rules because there's a mission in it where you have to go around and you have to bust up police cars because, you know,
Hating cops used to be cool.
they made it seem like in this level that cops had like this invisible war going on with skaters, and it was their goal to just eradicate any single one that they could find. Like even one of the quotes that a cop says in this level is, "Calling all cars. Suspect is skating on East Main. Shoot to kill." Crazy line to just say about some dudes who just want to have fun. This map is huge and offers you a lot of space to explore, and a lot of spaces where you can collect big bonuses from hit and trick combos. Roswell is the last map that you unlock throughout your skating career. If you've never listened to a podcast of just a bunch of bros sitting around talking about their proof of existence of extraterrestrial beings, well, let me give you some context of what Roswell is. So Roswell, New Mexico, it has a military base inside of it and allegedly had a military aircraft crash in it in around 1947. Ever since the crash, well, the cool conspiracy world has rallied around the town of Roswell as being like the hub of extraterrestrial life. Do you guys remember when conspiracy theories used to be cool? When you could rally around an idea with like your friends in a community over the thought of like, I don't know, Bigfoot being real or the Loch Ness Monster or obviously aliens. But like now it's weaponized to get you to buy supplements or merchandise from these idealistic merchants of death. It's wild. So what does Roswell have to do with skating? Absolutely nothing.
It's just sick.
There's like an archaeological dig site inside of the skating map, military helicopters, and UFOs that are just placed all around the map. This was such a cheese way to end the game, as normally like you're so used to the reality of streets or a school or a mall, and then out of nowhere you just get tossed into an alien military base. So if you've ever wondered if Area 51 is real,
This is the proof.
it's literally on the screen.
Why would Neversoft just make this up?
Look, overall, all these maps are pretty heat in their own right. Capturing the energy and the environments of where skaters would just hang, the maps, they help create an atmosphere and an immersion to really help bring the video game player into a place to really feel like you were skating. But that's the cool thing about skating, right? Is the fact that you could just basically do it anywhere. I mean, I can't even think of a spot where it wouldn't be rad to skate in. At your office? Dope. At your nephew's bar mitzvah? Dope. Middle of a corporate conference about KPIs? Dope. Neversoft, they kind of got handed something here because you really just couldn't create an environment where it wouldn't be sick to skate in. Tony Hawk Pro Skater, it's known for having one of the greatest soundtracks of all time in video games. Neversoft, they decided to create the most comprehensive playlist for players to be invited into the world of skating. From punk rock to ska to nu metal. This game's soundtrack, it really varied with different genres that were heavily present at the time. Some of the standout songs here that really burned their way into the psyche of a whole generation of literally being,
Oh, that song from Tony Hawk?
that would probably be Police Truck by the Dead Kennedys, Superman by Goldfinger, Jerry Was a Race Car Driver by Primus, and Psycho Vision by Suicidal Tendencies. You know how sleeper agents are like awoken up out of nowhere when they hear a specific subset of words so they can do diabolical deeds in the name of a foreign government? Well, when Superman by Goldfinger starts playing anywhere where I'm at, it's like I get locked in like a sleeper agent. My hands just click into place like an N64 controller, and I just start hitting the most dopest Ali Madonna combos that you've ever seen in your entire life in my head. This soundtrack, it conditioned me to associate any sort of ska, punk, hard rock, nu metal, or higher tempo hardcore songs with skater culture. And this was done on purpose, as obviously now there's an entire genre of music called skate punk. Skate punk is the obvious bands that come into your mind when you picture a dude with a wallet chain and JNCO jeans, like The Offspring, or Blink-182, or Papa Roach. And are all of those technically skate punk bands? No, but that's the type of music that skaters are related to at the time. So the question is, what makes a skate punk song? First ingredient, hard and fast strumming of power chords on offbeats. Second ingredient, a bass line that just rides along the same line as those power chords. Third ingredient, fast, up-tempo drums. What the? Fourth and final ingredient, lyrics about being 35 but feeling 15.
I miss school lunch. I miss math class. I miss reset. I miss puck pass. I'm 35, but I feel 15. My job is hard, and I miss the scene. Skating fast, with no regrets. I miss the days of being a reject.
Yeah, and that's really about it. Thanks to Tony Hawk, implementing this style of music into the mainstream, it was quintessential for the early 2000s. Hey, if you couldn't tell, this whole game is about skating. But the thing that makes this game different from any of the other skate games that came out before, mind you, almost non-existent, was the wide variety of tricks that you had up your sleeve. At the game's core, you have 3 different types of tricks that you can pull off: grab tricks, flip tricks, and grind tricks. Depending on what combinations of buttons that you press at the same time while you're skating or absolutely cooking butter in a half pipe will determine the type of trick that you pull off. Grab tricks are the dopest types of tricks to do. And they also help you rack up the most amount of points while you're trying to hit those 2-minute runs. Some notable grab tricks that you can do that will make any judge in a competition load up their shorts would be the Madonna, the Benihana, the Indy nose bone, and like the rocket air. The thing that makes these grab tricks different is the way that you obviously grab onto the board while you're spinning around midair. They're normally a variation from other grab tricks, but increasing the difficulty slowly on being able to land them. Flip tricks, I mean, come on, they're obvious. If you don't know what a kick flip or a heel flip is, may I politely ask you to get back into your horse and buggy and return to your Amish community as soon as possible. It's almost springtime and they're going to need all the help that they can get with this year's harvest. The grind slide tricks are different tricks that you can do while sliding your board up against a rail or a surface. Some of these would be like board slides, 50-50s, or more. These allow you to move throughout the map and still collect up points even if there's no ramps around. These are pretty sick because as you're cooking a grind slide trick, you have to balance the skater with the thumbstick so you make sure that they don't get cow tipped. I would love to get a chance to be able to talk to Tony Hawk or some of these original skaters and just ask them where they came up with the names for some of these tricks. All right, fine. For fun, I'll come up with some skate tricks and give them some goofy names. The Super Soaker. It's like when you hit a 720 ollie spin, but then you also pee out of the zipper of your shorts at the same time. The Bunghole Blaster. This one's when you're grinding down a rail, and then you chug a bottle of hot sauce, and then just blow out the back of your shorts with some pepper propulsion over a ramp like Evel Knievel. The Tax Man. All right, so this one, it requires a helicopter and a parachute. You jump out of a helicopter and you do as many kick flips as possible while you have a laptop in front of you and you're filing your federal taxes before you hit the ground. The NBA 2K Career Mode. You have to hit a Madonna off the judge's stand while he's settling on the alimony payments from your divorce. The thing that's sick about all these different kind of tricks is when you find a way to obviously chain them all together. Hit a couple kick flips, grind off a rail, drop into a half pipe, and cook a Madonna. It's just so sick. Outside the obvious uses of tricks, there are mission objectives that are present inside of each level that allow you to collect VHS tapes. With the collection of VHS tapes, this allows you to unlock new maps, increase the stats on your skater, and that's it. There are commonalities in the goals that are spread out throughout the maps here, right? Collecting the hidden tapes, collecting the letters SKATE, and hitting the assigned high scores for that map. Man, talk about being a time capsule. Implementing tapes here as the main collectible in the game, it really showcased the culture at the time. I guess the question is, if the game was reimagined today, what would those collectibles be? Probably like an iPhone that had TikTok downloaded on it, or like a DoorDash e-delivery gift card, or a flash drive with every single episode of Game of Thrones on it. The skate letters are always just enough of a challenge to test your mobility and your movement throughout the map. It allows you to test different routes and even explore portions of the map that you didn't even know existed. When it came to collecting the high scores, that didn't even feel like a chore if you knew how to skate right. You were just having fun by just trying to rack up points by being as rad as humanly possible. Can't hit the high score to get a tape? Here we go. Here's a Cornborn Pro Gamer tip for you. Just be a vert skater and rip the 900. Obviously, in the world of skating, there are 2 different types of skaters that you get to choose while playing this game. Either a vert skater or a street skater. Vert skating is more like when you slide into a half pipe and you try to finesse as many combos as possible. I found this to be the easiest way possible to collect points, and it gives the game a lot more excitement than just like hitting ollies or just grinding over handrails. Funny story, while I was playing through this game again, I didn't even realize that each skater had special tricks. So when when I got to like the San Francisco level, I kept trying to get I think it was like 40 or 50,000 point high score, right? And I kept trying to cook it over and over again. And I was always like 5,000 points off. And I kept getting so pissed because I kept trying every single combination possible. It just wasn't working. So then I was like, well, Tony Hawk did the 900. I'm Tony Hawk. Let me do the 900. How do I do the 900? So then I Googled it, and it told me that it was like just like I think it's like left down B or whatever, and like, dude, cooked it and immediately got the high score. I was so pissed because I was like, if I would have known about this from the beginning, I just would have been doing this from the beginning. Anyway, the combination of the tricks that you get to use here, the collectibles and the objectives, and just combining all of those tricks together to be able to hit those different mission objectives, like smashing cop cars or taking down the no skating sign, or crashing through the mall directories. All those different kinds of things here, they really combine together to make the dopest possible gameplay for a skating game that I've ever seen. Tony Hawk Pro Skater, it was a complete paradigm shift for society, for youth, and for gamers alike. With this game, it introduced skating into the homes of millions. It really comes down to the argument of when people talk about that video games rot your brain. That's bullshit. There are a lot of ways that people get impacted by this medium. There are professional X-Game skaters out there that said that they started skating because of Tony Hawk. On another example of why this type of medium is important is because, for me personally, I'm a guitar player, I'm a songwriter. The only reason why I started doing that was because I picked up a Guitar Hero guitar. What makes this so impactful is maybe not even the skating itself, or even the gameplay or the mechanics. It's the fact that games like this, games like Guitar Hero, that kind of emulate something that's going on in the real world, it inspires people. It gets them to pick up that object, whether it be a skateboard or a guitar, and allows them to pick up a new hobby and have something more to live for than just sitting around and rotting and taking in all the bullshit that's going on in this world. That's the legacy of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, is it impacted a whole generation of kids to see that if they really put their mind to something and they really worked for something, it's possible. Those types of things are possible. So, shout out Tony Hawk, you're a beast. I love you. Obviously, you have to play Tony Hawk Pro Skater. There's a variety of ways for you to play this game. This game, it was available for the PlayStation 1, the Nintendo 64, the Sega Dreamcast. Only play those versions. If you have any of those old consoles tucked away inside of a storage unit, well, go pick those up right now before Storage Wars shows up and that guy who says, yep, pulls up and takes that console away from you and your experience of the Hawk. Look, while I understand there is an appeal of going back and playing this game in its original state, like when I just most recently played it, I played the Nintendo 64 version because I had that emotional connection to my childhood. I'm just gonna say it, there is a superior way to play this game. In 2020, a year that is widely remembered to be the source of people's downfall and desperation and despair. One moment, it shined through like a beacon of hope, like the bat symbol in a cloudy night sky. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, they got remastered for modern consoles, adding in new maps and content and challenges and characters and more. This might be sacrilegious to the true master skaters out there, but this is the optimal way to play this game. While most remasters, like, they have a way to kind of just look like a lifeless shell of what the original version was based off the greed of corporations, the remasters, they take what this game was created with and they just completely update everything to modern times. It runs at 60 frames a second on modern consoles. It's got almost photorealistic graphics, reusing and adding new flavor into that soundtrack, and then also adding in almost all of the basic quality of life changes that were added in over time throughout the franchise. This is probably the greatest remaster I've ever seen of a game, ever. So go pick it up, go buy it, so you can give Tony Hawk a little bit of extra cheddar to help him do what he does best. Be dope. What's the highest combo that you ever achieved while playing this game? Are you a street skater or are you a vert skater? If you could invent a skate trick, what would it be and what would you call it? Let me know in the comments. And as always, this channel was made to promote my band. At the time of this release, we will have 2 new singles that just came out. And go rip them, because I mean, if you like Tony Hawk's soundtrack, then you're definitely gonna like our band's music. All right, thanks for popping by. Cornborn. Sup? This was a fun one to make. I felt like there was a lot of good stuff going on in it. Had a lot of fun. This game means a lot to me because when I attempted to be a streamer when I was in college, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered in 2020 was what I played all the time, and nobody watched. So hopefully you guys watched this and you liked it. I'm glad you're here. I love you. Cornfield rules. Join the Discord or I'll blow out the back of my shorts. Signing out.